Welcome back to Ask Rip. We're outside today, pretty day in May here in North Texas. One of the few times of the year. Well, that's not exactly true. I mean, we've got probably 6 months of very good weather here in North Texas, as opposed to you poor bastards up north where there's this much snow on the ground still right now in May. We actually use our outside track here in North Texas. Now, there's 3 months in the summer when it's kind of a hellish nightmare, but the winters are nice, spring and fall are nice, and we're just outside taking advantage of the pretty weather to do some stuff out here today. And we're taking your inane, meaningless questions off the internet as a method of reaching out to you to keep you engaged, to keep our web traffic up, and to make it look as though we're actually interested in Iron Lotus PT. His question: any advice besides have surgery? That's what it says right here. See what I mean? About training with hernias, inguinal or hiatus hernia, midline hernia. Oh God, we have addressed this so many times on the board that I've stated a policy about, what was it, about 3 or 4 years ago, that no more hernia questions. But since you asked in this format, it'll give me an opportunity to explain why I took that position about no more hernia questions. Look, boys and girls, boys, an inguinal hernia is a surgical situation. It's a surgical situation. You can't train with it. Get it fixed. You're going to hurt yourself. Hernias don't come from training. Hernias come from mom and dad. You inherit an inguinal hernia or the predisposition toward an inguinal hernia. Most people that have inguinal hernias don't train because most people don't train. And yet people get inguinal hernias anyway, and as a result of that, don't blame it on your squats or deadlifts. Now, once you get an inguinal hernia, putting the lawnmower in the car, in the back seat of the car like you guys that smoke do. And he paid his dues. You guys, white trash guys that smoke, the bottom 10%, pick up their lawnmower and put it in the back seat of their car to go get it fixed. Take it to their buddy in a different trailer park across town and tear open your inguinal hernia doing something other than training. You're the norm. Most people don't train, so most people who have an open inguinal hernia just got it doing something stupid. So get over the idea that something about training contributes to an inguinal hernia. It does not. All right? Those of you that do train, a certain percentage of you carry the predisposition of an inguinal hernia, and you're going to get one. Most of the time it happens when you do something stupid like, muscle ups or other stupid things like, doing a pegboard, doing a bunch of abs on a pegboard, jerking yourself around, or, putting your high quality lawnmower in the back of your pickup, which is what you ought to have, right? So if you have an inguinal hernia, go ahead and make your plans to get it fixed. If you have it on one side, make sure the surgeon is open to the suggestion that both sides get fixed, because if one side is weak, the other side is also weak. All right, make sure it's a mesh repair. It can be fixed laparoscopically these days, and the recovery from it is pretty quick. You'll be back to training in 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. Now the surgeon's going to tell you 6 weeks. You can go ahead and take a 6-week layoff if you want to, but it's not necessary. Nobody does that. I was back in 8 or 10, 12, 14 days, something like that. And as a result, you'll never have to worry about the hernia again. Now, a midline hernia, what did he call that? A hiatal hernia.
He called it a hiatus hernia.
A hiatus hernia. A hiatal hernia, well, hold on. No, hiatal hernia is a different deal entirely. That's a diaphragmic defect. Let's address the midline hernia at first. Midline hernia is a separation between the abdominal muscle bellies, between the rectus abdominis muscle bellies here along that midline tendon. Those are harder to repair. They use mesh occasionally. Sometimes they just suture them up. Most of the time, guys that get those are just fat guys, and you've got a whole bunch of visceral pressure against the inside of that abdominal wall. Until that is resolved, a repair is probably not going to be successful. I've heard of women having problems with those after pregnancy. I have no personal experience with those. My experience with them comes from having watched a couple of people train through them, get them repaired. A lot of times they don't repair them. If it's not causing you a lot of problems, then probably you're going to get the advice to just leave it alone, and that's probably going to work just fine. It's wear a belt, maybe two belts. Maybe wear a high belt and a low belt if it holds it together. Now, a hiatal hernia, and he says a hiatus hernia. This is a completely different situation than an inguinal hernia. Hiatus hernia is an enlargement in the passage through the diaphragm where the esophagus goes. It is, I've read estimates that up to 35% of the population has a hiatal hernia. Sometimes it bothers you, sometimes it doesn't. I have a hiatal hernia. It is usually no trouble. And the best thing you can, and yet probably, if we're going to contribute a lot of heavy training to the cause of a hernia, you could probably make a case for heavy squats and deadlifts, mashing a hole open in that passage through the diaphragm over time. I don't know that, but it seems plausible to me that that could predispose a person to a hiatal hernia. Hiatal hernias are usually implicated in gastroesophageal reflux disease, and they can cause problems. The surgery that I have read about for hiatal hernia does not look terribly satisfying to me. They basically take a loop of your upper stomach and wrap it around so that the thing will no longer slide through that hole. However, it does make it very difficult to vomit if you have to vomit. Let's say you get poisoned or something, you have to vomit. Or let's say, you're like our friend Phil, who just likes to vomit. You can't vomit anymore if you have that surgery done. And it could be a problem if you get some toxic substance in your stomach. So these are things to consider about a hiatal hernia. But once again, a hiatal hernia is not the same thing as an inguinal hernia, and I think possibly Iron Lotus PT may have been confused about that. Because I don't know about you, but I would not have asked those two questions in the same context since they're completely separate issues. All right? Now, one more?
Yeah.
How many was that? That was only one. That was one that was long because it was useful. This one, I hadn't read it yet, will probably be stupid. So we can dispense with this quickly. All right? It says here, J. Zig to ask Griff, what does the typical progression look like for a strong weighted chin? I do 15 body weight chins and would like to add weight. Well, the progression looks like 1 or 2 pound jumps. Once again, we're dealing with upper body. Upper body muscles are smaller. The jumps have to be smaller. 1 or 2 pounds. That was easy. Once a week, 1 or 2 pounds. Takes time. You're not going to do a weighted chin with 600 pounds at any point in your life. So you have time. Take your time. All right? Now look at this one. Here's Jerome, our friend Jerome Wisniewski from Latrobe, PA, who is, by the way, I happen to know, freshly relocated to Arizona. Ask Rip, inspired by our recent visit to the Foster House, what are the 3 best, most interesting places for a sandwich in the country? Asking for Dracula, our friend Nicholas Dracula, starting strength coach, Nick Raculia, should know better than to have Jerome ask us this question, because I think he already knows, all right? So the Foster House, in fact, we just went over there. The Foster House has this ridiculous sandwich that has got prosciutto, cheese, French fries, and coleslaw on the damn thing. And it's good. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. It's about this tall, and it's, you know, you get it all over the room when you eat it. It's impossible to not have little fragments of various components of that sandwich on your face, in your hair, your lap, down on your boots. You know, it just gets all over everything. But God, it's good. You know, and you have to eat it fast, because if the French fries get cold, you know, it's the flavor's off. So you got to eat that fast. All right, that's number one sandwich. Number two sandwich is the Reuben sandwich at the places in Lexington, Kentucky called Ramsey's. Ramsey's is a small chain, and they have a hot brown there, which is kind of a local thing. It's a local sandwich with, if I remember correctly, it's roast beef, ham, cheese, brown gravy, mashed potatoes. Those of you that have access to it will correct me on the ingredients, I'm sure. But that thing is just, oh God, don't mind. But their Reuben is the goddamnedest thing you've ever had. And I've had Reubens all over Long Island and New York, and I know what I'm talking about here. You guys up in the 5 boroughs and that have been to what's that place in Manhattan that's got an $18 Reuben sandwich? Famous deli, Katz's Deli. Look, Ramsey's in Lexington. Okay, that's number 2. And is a hamburger a sandwich?
Yes.
Hamburger's a sandwich. So the best hamburger in North America is right down the road here. Right down the road here in Jacksboro, Texas, about an hour south of town, at Herd's. H-E-R-D apostrophe S. Been there since the 20s. That is all I have to say about that. Herd's is the best cheeseburger in existence, bar none. Had them all over the place. Nothing even comes close. And it's on Highway 281. If you're traveling through North Texas, make a point to stop at Herd's in Jacksboro. All right. Well, that's enough damage for today. Thank you for joining us here on Ask Rip, and we'll see you again sometime soon, where you will be pointlessly indulged with meaningless questions for me.